Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on AI, but not the kind that's, all sunshine and roses and promises to change the world. We're going to look at the dark side, the downsides, the AI snake oil,
Yeah.
as it's called, by Arvind Narayanan and Sayash Kapoor. We're diving into their book
AI snake oil.
of the same name. And
What they do in this book, which I find really refreshing, is that they actually don't bash AI
right.
like a lot of people are doing these days.
Yeah.
They recognize the fact that it can do good,
Right.
but they're shining a light on how it's also being used in misleading ways.
Yeah. And they're not saying that all AI is bad or anything like that. They're saying there are certain systems that are marketed as being super accurate or super fair or super unbiased, and they're really not.
Exactly.
And so they call this AI snake oil, just like, in the old days, people would sell snake oil that didn't actually do anything.
Exactly. Like you see this visual in the book right at the beginning. Figure 1.1 is this advertisement for snake oil from 1905.
Yeah.
And it just makes all these outlandish claims.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to get at, that a lot of AI that's being sold is smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, it's designed to dazzle people, but not actually deliver.
Exactly.
And institutions, especially struggling institutions, seem to be the most susceptible to this kind of.
Yeah, and that's actually a really key point in the book, is they argue that broken systems want quick fixes, and that's why they're so susceptible to AI snake oil.
Right.
They want a simple answer to a complex problem.
Yeah.
And AI is often marketed as being able to provide that.
Right.
Like, here's the algorithm that's going to solve all your problems.
Yeah, we don't have to do anything. It'll just do it for us.
Exactly.
One example they give is schools using AI to detect gun violence.
Yeah.
Which sounds good in theory, but they talk about the accuracy rates being shockingly low.
Yes, they are. And what's even worse is they're often riddled with false positives.
Right.
Which end up causing more harm than good.
Yeah, like imagine if the system's constantly going off.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, there's a gun, and it's like not actually.
And it's creating a false sense of security.
Yeah, and even worse, it could be used to racially profile students.
Yeah, exactly. And this ties into a bigger question that the book explores, which is, can AI really predict the future?
Right.
They talk about this really interesting case study called the Fragile Families Challenge.
Okay.
Where researchers tried to predict different outcomes for children at age 15, like their GPA, or whether they experienced hardship.
Oh, wow.
And they used all sorts of data from their early lives to try to make these predictions.
So did they manage to predict the future?
Not really. I mean, the predictions, even from the most sophisticated AI models, were barely better than chance. And this is something they talk about throughout the book, is that predicting human behavior over long periods is just inherently difficult.
Yeah, and it's like no matter how much data you have.
Exactly. It's not just about data. There are just limitations in what we can know about the future.
Yeah, this reminds me of, I've always tried to learn how to play guitar. And I'd practice so much, but my friend could just barely touch the instrument and be better than me.
Right.
It's like, how much of it is actually, within our control, and how much of it is just
chance.
Yeah.
Exactly. And actually that ties into a concept they talk about called cumulative advantage.
Okay.
Which is this idea that a lot of success in life comes from these early random events that snowball into bigger and bigger things.
Okay.
So imagine a band that gets an early break. Maybe a blogger shares their song. They start getting more gigs, more exposure, and suddenly they're on this path to success. Even if other bands are just as talented.
Wow. So it's
So early luck
yeah,
can have this huge impact on your trajectory.
Yeah.
And that makes it really hard to predict who's going to succeed in the long run.
Yeah, it's like predicting which song is going to go viral.
Exactly.
Or which video is going to get 1 million views.
It's not about the quality of the song or the video.
Yeah.
It's about these random events that kind of take on a life of their own.
Right.
And this randomness gets even more concerning when you start thinking about how AI is being used in high-stakes situations.
Yeah, like in criminal justice.
Exactly.
Where there's a system called Compass that judges use to decide, whether someone's likely to reoffend.
Yeah.
And that's really...
It gets really ethically tricky.
Yeah.
Because these systems are often trained on data that reflects historical biases.
Right.
So even if the AI itself is not biased,
Right.
the data it's learning from
Yeah.
can lead to unfair outcomes.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
It is.
Like if it says that, this person's likely to reoffend, then they might be treated more harshly and then actually end up
Exactly.
in the system.
And a lot of these systems,
Yeah.
their accuracy is often really inflated.
Okay.
When you actually look closely at how well they do,
Yeah.
they might be doing barely better than flipping a coin.
Right.
And yet we're using them to make these huge decisions that impact people's lives.
Right. So predictive AI is like a whole can of worms.
It is.
But what about generative AI? Like the AI that creates things like ChatGPT, writes text, or you see all these images now that are AI generated.
Yeah.
Is that all snake oil too?
That's a great question, and we're going to dive into that as well.
Awesome.
The book talks about generative AI, and it examines its potential, but also its limitations.
Okay.
And the ethical concerns it raises.
Right. Generative AI is definitely having like a moment right now. It's all over the place. Everyone's talking about it.
It's really captured
ChatGPT composing poems and
people's imagination.
These images that look like photographs.
Yeah.
But is that all snake oil too?
Well, the book delves into that as well.
Okay.
It examines the potential of generative AI, but also some of the limitations and ethical concerns.
Okay, so let's start with chatbots, like ChatGPT. I've played around with ChatGPT. It's pretty amazing. You can have a conversation with it.
Yeah.
You can ask it to write code. You can ask it to compose a song. It feels like the future of communication, but is it all it's cracked up to be?
Well, it's definitely impressive.
Yeah.
But the book actually calls these chatbots bullshit generators.
Bullshit generators.
Yeah.
That's a pretty strong term.
It is.
How can something so sophisticated be a bullshit generator?
Well, because they're designed to produce human-like text.
Okay.
But they often prioritize fluency over truth.
Oh.
So they can string together words that sound really plausible, maybe even profound, but they might not actually be based in reality.
Wow. So it's like they're masters of deception.
In a way, yeah.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's both fascinating and unsettling.
Yeah, especially because it's moving so fast.
Yeah.
They give some pretty funny examples in the book.
Yeah.
Like a chatbot failing to understand the rules of rock, paper, scissors.
Exactly.
It can write you a sonnet, but it can't figure out that rock beats scissors.
Yeah, it highlights how these systems can be really sophisticated in some ways.
Yeah.
But surprisingly dumb in others.
Yeah, this whole bullshit generator thing really makes you think.
Yeah.
Like if we're already being fooled by AI now,
right?
What happens as it gets even more sophisticated?
That's the worry.
Yeah, it seems like it could be used for misinformation.
Exactly. And as these systems get better, it's going to become harder and harder to tell what's real and what's not.
Yeah, it's a little frightening.
Yeah.
And it's not just text.
Right.
It's images, too. Like those AI-generated images.
Yeah.
That's raising some ethical questions as well.
It is particularly for artists.
Right.
Because these systems...
like Delhi and Midjourney.
Yeah, they're trained on these massive data sets of existing images.
Right.
Often without the consent of the original artists.
Yeah, the book mentions how artists on ArtStation were protesting. They flooded the platform with these no to AI images messages.
It's a real concern for them.
Yeah, well, they're worried about
because it's essentially appropriating their styles and techniques without any acknowledgement or credit.
Yeah, it's like, where's the line between...
It raises these questions
human creativity
about copyright and ownership.
Yeah, it's like a whole new world.
And that's where regulation comes in.
Yeah, because we saw with predictive AI, like the lack of oversight can have really negative consequences.
Exactly.
But then there's that argument that regulation stifles innovation.
Right. But the authors make a really interesting point. They argue that responsible regulation can actually encourage innovation.
Oh.
By building trust and ensuring these technologies are used ethically.
So if people are afraid of AI, they're not going to use it.
Exactly. It's about finding that right balance between fostering progress and preventing harm.
So it's not just about governments setting rules.
Right.
It's also about companies taking responsibility.
Exactly. And being transparent.
Right.
About the limitations of their technology.
Yeah, and thinking about the ethical implications.
Yeah.
So it's like everybody's got to be on board.
It's a multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
It involves government, industry, and even individual users. We all have a role to play.
Right. And that brings us to another area that the book explores, which is content moderation.
Yeah.
There's just so much content online now.
There is.
And so much of it is harmful.
Yeah, like hate speech.
Yeah, hate speech,
Yeah, right.
misinformation.
Calls to violence.
Even like calls to violence.
It's overwhelming for these platforms.
Yeah, can AI solve that problem?
Well, that's the promise.
Right.
But the reality is much more complex. The book really dives into those challenges of content moderation and why it's much more than just enforcing a set of rules.
Right, because context matters.
It does.
Like if I'm being sarcastic,
exactly,
the AI might flag that as hate speech.
Right. Or a genuinely harmful post.
Right.
Might slip through the cracks.
Yeah, it's like AI can't really understand.
It struggles with nuance.
Yeah, like humor or sarcasm.
Exactly. It can be useful for identifying like duplicates of previously flagged content, but it often falls short.
Yeah.
When it comes to understanding the subtleties of human communication.
Right.
Like humor, sarcasm,
right.
cultural references.
Yeah, remember when Facebook took down that photo of the girl fleeing the napalm attack?
Yeah.
In Vietnam?
That was a classic example.
It was clearly a disturbing photo.
Yeah.
But it was also historically significant. And it was meant to raise awareness.
Exactly.
Facebook eventually backtracked.
They did.
But it just goes to show how complex this issue is.
Yeah, even humans.
Yeah.
With all our understanding of context, can struggle with these decisions.
Yeah, so expecting AI to solve it on its own
is unrealistic.
Yeah.
And potentially dangerous.
It's like expecting a robot to be a therapist.
Yeah.
Like it might be able to mimic human interaction, but it doesn't have the depth of understanding.
Exactly. And this gets to the heart of the problem with AI snake oil.
Yeah.
Which is that it promises simple solutions to complex problems.
Right.
It creates this illusion of control.
Yeah.
That's really dangerous.
Okay, so if AI isn't the solution, what is?
Well, the authors argue that it's not just about finding the right technology.
Okay.
It's about addressing the underlying incentives.
Oh, okay.
That drive the creation and spread of this harmful content.
Okay.
Talking about what they call the engagement trap, which is the way that these platforms are designed to maximize our attention.
Right.
Even if it means amplifying the most outrageous or divisive content.
Yeah, it's like this vicious cycle.
It is.
The more we engage with the negative stuff, the more they push it our way.
Exactly. And it's in their best interest to keep us hooked, even if it's bad for us.
Yeah.
Or for society.
It's like a drug.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need like a more holistic approach.
We do.
It's not just about the AI.
It's about rethinking the design of these platforms. It's about promoting media literacy.
Okay.
It's about fostering a more responsible online culture.
So it's not about suppression, it's about prevention.
Yeah.
It's not about like the AI content police.
Exactly.
It's about creating spaces where this stuff is less likely to flourish in the first place.
Exactly. And that's going to require a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Collaboration between platforms, policymakers, educators, users.
It's a big challenge.
It is a big challenge.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From predictive AI to generative AI.
Some content moderation.
Content moderation.
Yeah.
It's clear that AI has a lot of potential, but it's not a magic solution.
Right.
And trusting it blindly can be really dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
So in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore what all this means for us as individuals and as a society.
Like, what are the implications for the future of work?
Yeah.
For our relationship with technology.
Right.
For the fabric of our social and political lives.
So stay tuned for the final part
of our exploration of AI snake oil.
Okay, so we've spent the last two parts really going deep on, the dark side of AI, peeling back the hype, the snake oil and all that.
Yeah.
What do we do about it?
That's the big question.
Yeah, like where do we go from here?
Right.
How do we navigate this increasingly AI-driven world without falling for the tricks and the traps?
And the book doesn't just leave us with a sense of doom and gloom.
Right.
They offer some solutions.
Okay.
Some ways to think about how we can move forward.
Okay.
One of the most surprising ideas they propose is to embrace randomness.
Embrace randomness.
Right.
That seems a little counterintuitive.
It does.
Isn't AI all about, like, eliminating randomness?
Right. It's about finding patterns.
Yeah, maybe making predictions.
Controlling things.
Right.
But the authors argue that this obsession with optimization has made us overlook the value of chance.
Okay.
of those unpredictable moments that shape our lives.
It's like those sliding doors moments in life.
Exactly.
Like if we could predict and control everything,
Right.
wouldn't life kind of lose some of its magic?
Exactly.
Oh.
And in a lot of areas.
Okay.
Especially when we're dealing with human behavior.
Yeah.
Complex systems.
Right.
Trying to predict and control everything can actually backfire. They use a kind of interesting example.
Okay.
Lotteries.
Lotteries.
Yeah.
That seems like the opposite.
I know it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But they argue that sometimes when the criteria for selection are really subjective or hard to measure,
right,
a lottery can actually be a fairer approach than relying on biased human judgment.
Interesting.
Or potentially flawed AI.
So it's like admitting that sometimes the best we can do is just make sure everyone has an equal chance.
Exactly.
Instead of trying to predict who deserves it more.
Right.
Yeah.
And they also suggest that lotteries can be a good way to evaluate the effectiveness of different policies.
Okay.
So like if you want to know if a certain program is working,
right,
you can randomly assign people to different groups.
Okay.
And that helps you get a clearer picture
right,
of what's actually making a difference.
Wow. So it's like a real world experiment.
Yeah.
Okay, so the takeaway here is not to throw AI out the window.
Right.
It's to use it wisely.
Yeah.
Along with other tools. And recognize that sometimes a little bit of randomness can be a good thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And they also talk about the need for regulation.
Yeah.
I know nobody likes to hear that word.
Right. It's not a very sexy topic.
Yeah. But they make a pretty good case for it.
They do.
Like, we need some rules of the road here.
We do.
To make sure that AI is used in a way that benefits everybody.
It's not about stifling innovation.
Right.
It's about making sure that this technology is developed and used responsibly.
But, like, we have regulations for food safety.
Exactly.
For the environment. Why not for AI?
Right. It's just another powerful technology.
Right. And some people say that regulation would slow down innovation.
Right.
But they argue that it could actually speed it up.
Yeah, because it creates a level playing field.
Okay.
It builds trust.
Yeah.
It encourages companies to focus on ethical AI.
Right. So if people trust AI, they're more likely to use it. And if companies are incentivized to develop it ethically, then that's good for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. And they also talk about the importance of public awareness and education.
The more people understand about AI, the less likely they are to be fooled by snake oil.
So we need to be informed consumers.
Exactly.
Ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Demand transparency from companies. Okay? And they end the book with this really interesting idea.
Okay.
They present two visions of the future. One is where AI is viewed with fear and suspicion,
right,
which leads to overregulation and kind of stifles innovation. The other is where AI is integrated into our lives in a more balanced and thoughtful way, where it's a tool that helps us learn and create and connect. And they don't say which feature is more likely, but it's clear which one they're rooting for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful message.
Yeah, it's a call to action.
It is.
For all of us.
To be part of this conversation. To shape the future of AI in a way that benefits humanity.
So as we come to the end of this deep dive into AI snake oil, it's clear that we've got some big decisions to make.
We do.
Are we going to buy into the hype?
Right.
Or are we going to be critical thinkers? Are we going to demand better from this technology? Are we going to use it for good?
Those are the questions we need to be asking.
Yeah, I think this has been a really eye-opening deep dive.
It has for me, too.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep asking those tough questions.
And stay curious.
Stay curious.
Thank you for joining us at Wisdom House, where we bring you timeless insights from the greatest books. If you found this deep dive valuable, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom House. Stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll see you in the next video.